compare to what we did in the Balkans, if you can compare to what we did in Afghanistan to get rid of the Taliban, or is a fraction of what we did. So it's not an air campaign. It is something slightly more than a PR campaign. But I subscribe to what I would call the Hume-Goldberg Krauthammer thesis that this is essentially a political operation. It is a way to say we're doing something to take the heat off of him through the midterms, to make it seem as if he is doing what he needs to do as commander-in-chief, when in fact it's essentially a glorified light show at this point.
All right, of course, talking about the war against ISIS, if you even want to call it a war. Joining us now is Michael Rubin, resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute and senior lecturer at the Naval Postgraduate School Center for Civil Military Relations, author of the great book, Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engaging Rogue Regimes. There it is on the screen. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing a lot better than the Kurds in Kobani, unfortunately, right now. Is that not true?
That is absolutely true. You know, if you take a stalemate and you blockade the good guys, and the bad guys are able to get weaponry and money from Turkey, perhaps from Qatar, they're able to seize what they need from Mosul, you privilege the bad guys, you undercut the good guys, and what you have is Kobani.
Why is it? I mean, it seems like a very simple question and maybe a overly simplistic question. Why aren't we doing more? Why? I mean, you know, if that falls and there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people massacred, I mean, how much of that is on our lack of engagement?
A huge amount of that's going to be on our lack of engagement, Steve. You know, it really is ironic. You look at the Pentagon press releases, they're talking about 5, 6, 7 airstrikes. Well, our aircraft carriers can launch a plane every 35, 40 seconds. So in effect, what you're talking about is President Obama getting on television saying we're going to defeat this group and then committing about 4 solid minutes of aircraft carrier time to get it done. Obviously, that's not going to work. I mean, ultimately, if we were serious about an air campaign, we could be making a difference. But at this point, I'd liken it to Warsaw 1944, where you had the Red Army sitting on the sidelines while the Germans massacred the Polish partisans. In this case, the Kurds are playing the role of the Polish partisans, and the Turkish army and NATO is playing the role of the Red Army, just cynically standing by.
I hate to even use the words NATO and Turkey in the same breath, because I'm still dumbfounded by what they're still doing in NATO. But that's another story. But you're absolutely right. That's a brilliant analogy. It's an unfortunate one, but I think it's right on target. You know, we keep hearing from the administration when asked by the White House press corps or by the State Department press corps, these representatives, whether it's Ernest or whether it's Psaki, you know, well, the president said from the outset this was going to be a long haul. You know, in other words, it's like, well, we can't do too much. We can't beat these guys right now because the president said it's going to take a long time. The whole thing is bizarre.
You know, it's absolutely right. We're really being self-defeating right now because, again, when you look at what the Pentagon is actually doing and you read the press releases, most of the airstrikes are occurring far from the front line where they're needed, either in Kobani or on the outskirts of Baghdad, where ISIS has also opened up another front. It's almost as if on December 8th, 1941, Franklin Delano Roosevelt declared war on Japan and then proceeded to bomb Argentina.
Well, why is this the case against every military advisor that and against probably even other people within the State Department, although I don't think there's too many, Defense Department. We know now Panetta originally. I mean, this guy goes against every general. Why? What is his reason for this?
Well, you know, Steve, I think the biggest difference between left and right in America is the left always demonizes power, while the right understands that power can be used for good or for bad. President Obama's a leftist. Those surrounding him are from the left. President Obama looks at the U.S. military as an arrow in our quiver in which to engage in wars of choice. He does not understand that having the predominant military on earth is the proverbial finger in the dike preventing a deluge of chaos, and that if we allow a vacuum to develop, it's not going to be the forces of altruism which fill it. It's going to be what we see in Kobani right now.
All right, let me ask you how. I know there's only scattered information coming out there. It's been silent for a few hours now, maybe half a day. how much danger is there on the outskirts of Baghdad right now that ISIS could reinforce there and group up there and go into Baghdad?
Well, ISIS's weakness, despite having conquered this area the size of Pennsylvania, is the fact that they haven't conquered any Arab capital. I really don't think that Baghdad is going to be the first Arab capital to fall. I mean, unfortunately, I'd say Amman has a better chance of that, Amman, Jordan.
Right.
The danger is they're on the outskirts of Baghdad, but what else is on the outskirts of Baghdad? Baghdad International Airport.
Yeah.
And that's the way in which we have all the foreign embassies operating in Baghdad.
That's problematic. Michael Rubin, great to talk to you, sir. As always, thank you very much. Folks, we'll be back with the Malzberg panel. First, let's take a look at the Titanic Memorial in Washington, D.C.
Women and children first. The orderly commands given that fateful April day in 1912 as the RMS Titanic began to sink after hitting an iceberg. Hours later, over 1,500 passengers and crew had perished in the chilly North Atlantic. The Titanic's sinking is well known, but few know of the permanent reminder of this infamous tragedy that stands not far from the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Weeks after the Titanic disaster, a group of American women organized the Titanic Memorial Committee. Soon, women all across the nation tirelessly collected $1 at a time from grief-stricken Americans who admired the heroism of the brave men who voluntarily gave up their lifeboat seats. First Lady Helen Taft is said to have donated the very first dollar for construction of the memorial. Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, of the prominent Vanderbilt family, designed the striking 13-foot-tall male figure with arms outstretched. Carved by Boston sculptor John Horrigan in 1918 from Rhode Island granite, the statue was finally erected in 1930 after 20 years of quarreling over where to put it. Today, it stands overlooking the Potomac River on Washington's waterfront. An inscription reads, "To the brave men who perished in the wreck of the Titanic, they gave their lives that women and children might be saved." The Titanic Memorial stands as a monument to the perished and the sacrifice of those who gallantly stepped aside so others would live. For Newsmax TV, I'm Lucy Celia, and this is An American Place.